Let's move to the Word of God. Numbers chapter number 33. Numbers, the book of Numbers chapter number 33. I ain't going to be long, but I need to do my assignment. Bless God again for Pastor Jay and for those who hold down and hold up the arms of ministry here at Deliverance Center in my absence. But as I often say, I take my pastoral responsibility significantly serious. And so the weeks that I'm here, I must do my assignment. All right? I know that they said that there's an all-church meeting after this, and maybe we'll figure it out. But I want to see the leaders, and if I can't see you today, we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. But I need to, just some things I woke up in my spirit this morning, just kind of, I need to really impart and release it from my spirit to your spirit so we can move, amen, in a progressive manner. Numbers 33. Numbers 33. Let's make a deal. If you pray, I'll preach. If you stop praying, I'm still going to preach because that's what I came home to do. Is that all right? Numbers 33, when you've got it, shout amen. We're going to pick up our biblical voyage, dare I say, our scriptorial journey at verse number 50 and read down through verse number 54, and we're going to exegetically explore. Look at your neighbor and tell him, I need this word, and I came to get this word, so why don't you help me to receive my word? All right, verse number 50 in concert, what does it say? And the Lord spake unto Moses, the leader of the people of God. Moses in the plains of Moab. Where was he? In the plains of Moab by Jordan near Jericho. And he says, speak unto the children of Israel. Now, I don't want to get on a soapbox early, and I know everybody hears a word now and everybody gets a word, but there are certain words that God only speaks to the leader to speak to the people. So he speaks to the leader, he speaks to Moses, and he tells you where Moses was, and he tells them he was near Jericho where he would inevitably get the victory. Are you hearing me? Speak unto the children of Israel and say unto them, when ye are passed over Jordan. He talked to them, Lady Hosley, before they got into the promise. There are instructions that are given before the door opens, and then he'll tell you what's going to happen after you get in. Are you hearing me? He speaks to them at Jordan. He says, when you have passed over Jordan into Canaan, or the land of Canaan, then ye shall drive out all the inhabitants of the land from before you. He acknowledges that when you get there, it's not necessarily going to be an easy transition. He says, when you get there, it won't be like in the Wizard of Oz. You're not going to ease on down the road. No, ma'am, no, sir. He says, when you get there, there are going to be some people who are already living there, but don't be scared. But drive out all the inhabitants of the land that stand before you. But he gives specific instruction, Lady Jose. He gives specific instruction, Pop Beverly. He says, drive them out of the land before you and destroy all their pictures, all their posts, all their Instagrams. I can't get no help in here. When you get there, you can't keep anything that was posted before you got there. Destroy their pictures, destroy their statues, their furnishings, and pluck down all their high places. So when you get there, he prepared it for you, Nicole, but you can't live in your place with their stuff. If I don't say nothing else, that ain't even in my notes. And ye shall, I didn't even know this was a word, dispossess. We understand repossess. But dispossess the inhabitants of the land. They won't want to move, Wendy, but they got to move. The old church used to sing the song, when the Lord gets ready, they got to move. So ye shall dispossess the inhabitants of that land and dwell therein. It's your house. It's your location. It's your new place. It's your open door. Occupy it. Dwell therein. For I have given you the land to, I didn't give it to you to play with. I gave you the land to possess it. This won't be your rental property. This won't be your leased space. Hardy, when I give it to you this time, this is going to be yours to keep. Possess it. And ye shall divide the land. You're going to have so much, though. Watch this, daughter Angela, good to see you. You shall have so much. I'm going to give it to you, and you shall divide the land by the lots. Okay, you have to understand construction terminology, that each person has their own lot. You shall divide the land by lot for an inheritance among Watch this. Your family. He's making such a great space for you that you gonna be able to live on it. Your family gonna live on it. Your children gonna live on it. Your grandchildren, grandchildren's grandchildren gonna live. I'm gonna make you have lots, and it's going to be an inheritance among your family. And to the more ye shall give, the more inheritance. And to the few, in other words, I'm going to make sure that you distribute it appropriately. No investment, no return. To the fewer, the fewer, or to the less, to the fewer, the less. Every man's inheritance shall be in the place where his lot falleth, according to the tribes of your fathers. You shall inherit according to the tribes of your fathers. You shall inherit according to what? The tribes of your fathers you shall inherit. I'm going to back up and take the majority of my sermon in concentration. Well, the entirety really is in concentration, but he says, you shall go in and dispossess the inhabitants. There's some restrictions there, or some people that don't want you there, some resistance, I should say there, but you shall dispossess the inhabitants of the land and dwell therein, for I have given you the land to do what? To possess it. Now, that may not sound like a whole lot of anything to amount to a whole lot of anything to you, but this morning, in brief, for the sake of momentary information, dissemination, dare I say clarification and verification, look down your road, let your neighbor know, say, hey, neighbor, here's the word for us today. Say, as we soon approach year end, come on, tell them, as we soon approach year end, we're now in position, watch this, to make acquisition despite opposition. You may be seated in and amongst the household of faith. We are now, Hardy, in proper position to make acquisition despite opposition. Say that with me. Acquisition despite all opposition. And what we just cannot ignore, my myopic subtopic, Tucker, is this. Look at your neighbor and say, what's yours is worth fighting for. Acquisition despite opposition, and what's yours is worth fighting for. If you believe it, shout hallelujah. Y'all gonna help me preach today? Now, while spending more than a week or so away, quite honestly, young Walter, in the interest of full, complete, and total transparency, I did not spend much time in study. Tried to be diligent to spending time with Lady and just getting a respite for ourselves, and I did not spend a whole lot of time, Javar, in study. However, I did posture myself each and every day to very purposefully pray for I needed to hear and be conclusively clear as to precisely what the Lord would have to say upon my return today. And what I continuously heard the Lord, our God, our deity, repeatedly convey, Joanne, is that in prophetic proposition, that after he so accurately assessed, after he has assessed our current, or dare I say our recurrent conditions, was that despite, Hosley, all obstinate opposition, we must now prepare ourselves to make some definitive decisions that will release us in God to achieve and even readily receive our long-awaited and greatly anticipated acquisitions. Are you hearing me? In the face of opposition, we should prepare ourselves, daughter Hick, to make acquisitions. In fact, in the very next few ministerial moments, I must ecclesiastically expose, just so everybody knows, that the truth of the matter is this, Lady Hosley, watch this. All of us are being opposed. Are y'all gonna help me? The truth of the matter, so everybody knows, man, is that all of us, each and every one of us, are being opposed. However, also, I'm assigned to reveal what has been somewhat veiled or concealed, and that is that certain deitily directed or deitily directed destiny deals, watch this, are about to be closed and revealed. And in fact, I must look a few of you in your eye and prophesy and tell you that God's will now close or seal the deal. It's God's will, Nicole, to complete or seal the deal. It's God's will to finalize or seal the deal. In fact, let me look you again in your eye and prophesy that in the next 3 months, who am I talking to? In the next 3 months, watch God seal the deal. Now, in all fairness, for the primary purpose of our collective awareness, I must acknowledge the ever-present existence of both revealed as well as unrevealed resistance. Mom, you listening to me, Mom LaSure? I said I must reveal the existence of unrevealed and even some revealed resistance. But this morning I must be ecclesiastically insistent that we must contend for those things that we know that the Lord intends for us to apprehend. Are you hearing me? I'm going to take my time and talk you through this thing today. We must contend for those things that we know, Trajan, God intends for us to apprehend. In fact, just do me a favor and turn and tell at least one of your neighbors as though they are your newfound friend. Tell them we must contend in order to apprehend. Yeah. Look down to the other side of your road. Let the other neighbor know. Say, we must contend in order to apprehend. And wasn't this the contextually recorded core of the Apostle Paul's afforded conversation with a few of the assembled Philippian Christian citizens? Walk with me. In fact, Tucker, I am assured that some of my Sunday school alumni will assist me in my most earnest attempt to both clarify and verbally verify that these sentiments were spoken at a time when Paul and the Philippians were all facing life's ever-present oppositions. Are you hearing me? And when we give verses 12 through 14 of the third chapter of the book of Philippians, our attention and concentration, Paul both stated and then communicated that there are things, or dare I say, Archie, there are some things that I still intend to apprehend before my life ends. Are you hearing me? In fact, as he addresses the church, Hosley, he says, brethren. He wasn't leaving the sisters out, but he was addressing the brethren so the brethren could go home and tell the sisterin. Are you with me? He says, brethren, I count not myself to have apprehended, for all there is one thing I'm going to do. I'm going to forget that which is behind. See, that's the problem with modern day Christendom. We don't want to let it go. We don't want to let it go. We don't want to let it go. Look at your neighbor and say, you got to let it go. You want to go, but you don't want to let it go. He says, I'm forgetting all that's behind in order to access or to possess what God has predestined as being mine. Are you hearing me? And in the Apostle Paul's very literal likeness, Angela, I got up this morning and I got here to ecclesiastically be insistent, or to insist that today, by inspiration of he who is divine, we must be all inclined and readily resigned to start breaking all adversarial confines. Are you hearing me, people of God? We must get it on our mind and be readily resigned to break all adversarial confines. In fact, without an ounce of apprehension, it must be our collective intention with God's most earnest assistance and intervention to make these next major acquisitions despite all opposition. Are you hearing me, people of God? Now, there is no doubt that everybody knows we're continuously being opposed, but in this setting, it must be prophetically proposed that the things God has purposed, or Taya, the things that God has promised, are about to be exposed. Everybody knows we're being opposed, but what God has purposed and promised is about to be exposed. However, while this is God's most clever endeavor, it's now more than at any other time ever, Lady Hosley, pray me through right here. It must be strategically stressed. Can I strategically stress it? Jamani, it's got to be strategically stressed that we have been we have to find a way to fight our way through the test. And even persistently press in order to gain access, Alicia, to what God has purposed for us to possess. Are you going to help me? In fact, I heard Daughter Hicks, verse 14, I gleaned of the text profess that the apostle knew that he had been given access. He knew he had access. Hosley, we can exegete it in the office. Paul knew he had been given access, but he had to press in order to possess. Y'all not saying nothing to me. You know he promised you the car. You know he promised you the house. You know he promised you the ministry. You know he promised that he was going to do it for your family. But in this season, don't be lazy. You've got to press in order to possess. Are you hearing me? Old saints used to sing, I feel like pressing my way. I feel like pressing my way. Though trials are hard or times get dark on every hand, I feel like. And in like manner, let me unilaterally stress that we've got to press in this next season in order to possess. Now, believers, there is no doubt. Can I take my time? There is no doubt our confidence, Tucker, in what God promised will be put to the test. But you've got to press to possess. Our place of residence, Hicks, will be put to the test. But don't give up. Don't throw in the towel. Don't write it off. You've got to press in order to possess. Your profession and your confession will be put to the test. But you've got to press in order to possess. I didn't come home to be petty, but I need to tell somebody and stay steady that this is a generation that wants everything, but we don't want to go through anything. We were walking through the African American Museum one day, and I'm thinking, these people gave life, they gave heart, they knew that their homes would be bombed and families would be, they said, listen, but if there's nothing that you're not willing to die for, why live? They were willing to press. And now we act like, we don't want to appreciate what's been done. But you've got to press in order to possess. I'm not fussing. I'm just explaining. Now, once again, I told you I'm not going to be long, but I got to be strong. It's my most earnest ambition to move these, my Sunday morning sermonic suppositions, a rather rapid transition. However, while it is my ecclesiastical endeavor, Trajan, our conclusive clarity is an unarguable necessity. It is with your perceived permission that I do so by utilizing the following distinct and definitive definitions. Are you ready? In fact, when God and I, and this is the truth, when God and I, you'd have to travel with Lady Hosley. She sits there and she's supposed to be watching TV, whatever she's watching, Nicole, and she goes off to sleep and I go in to study. So while God and I sitting on a plane about 33,000 feet, when God and I sat and began to strategize, the verbiage I would utilize to fulfill my ministerial mission, I immediately sought to find definitions. As I sought for definitions, I found that the word acquisition means the gaining of an asset. Can I teach you? It's the gaining, Javar, of an asset or an object, usually of great significant value. You still in here? Secondarily, acquisition. An acquisition is a transaction. Tell your neighbor, transaction. An acquisition is a transaction in which a person or an entity acquires or purchases most of or all of another person's or another entity's shares to gain control of or to take full custody. When you make an acquisition, you have negotiated your position. I can't get no help in here. I didn't give this to the admin team. It is a term associated with negotiation or negotiated terms, which gives at least the insinuation or at least the indication that the place where we find ourselves, will soon find ourselves situated, has already been negotiated. In other words, God worked out the deal before he revealed. I can't get no help in this Pentecostal church. He didn't, watch this, I'm getting ahead of myself, but Moses wasn't given instruction by God to send out spies to a land that he didn't already purchase for his people. Y'all not saying nothing. By the time you get there, you must understand that the property has already been prepared. Y'all not helping me. That's why he said, everywhere your foot shall trod, it becomes your possession. It's not in my notes. Can I tell you? That's why you start walking into some place. I can't get it. This is mine, and this is mine, and this is mine. Y'all think we crazy, but watch this. My friend Pastor John P. Key say, if you're going to negotiate over a house and you believe it's your house, bring your lawnmower and cut the yard. In another season of my life, there was a family that was looking at a house, and I said, if you believe it, and the person liked to cook, I said, put your pot and your spoon in the pot on the stove and walk away, and the deal was closed in the next 30 days. I can't get no help in here. Do you believe that God already has a place prepared, and he's getting ready to make you aware of? I can't get no help in this Pentecostal church. Look at your neighbor and say, location, predetermination. It's already prepared. It's my house, and I live here. Y'all too saved. Y'all know nothing about that. So opposition, by definition, is a group of adversaries or competitors. A group of, there can be one, but usually they too cowardice to oppose you by themselves. So they put people, in fact, the only commonism that they have is that they both don't like you. Doing my best, babe. Watch this. I didn't come home to fuss, but I did come home to discuss. There are some hired hitmen. They are a group of opposers, group of adversaries or competitors. Listen, I ain't gonna give y'all too much. I'm glad I have people that I trust, and I'm in circles that say, I can hang out with you because it's not competitive. If I say I got a new suit, look at mine. If I say I got a new suit, look at mine. I say I got a new house, look at mine. No. I will help you celebrate. I ain't mad. You need to be in some circles where you can share. Watch this, but not always compare. Look at your neighbor and say, I want to be in situations where I can share, but I don't have to be in a situation where I compare. So it's a group of adversaries or a group of competitors. Opposition is that which stands against or in resistance or in opposing posture, position, disposition, or condition. Am I helping anybody? Now, if these rather distinct and definitive definitions, Nicole, are to be heralded as being indisputably true, then a very simple sermonic synopsis of what have been anointed, appointed, or assigned by the divine to share with you, I got to insist, is this. Is anybody ready? I didn't preach nor go to church last week, can y'all tell? Okay, so this past week, Joanne, in my time of intentional intercession for this Sunday morning sermon session, I believe it was the Lord himself who spoke into my spirit in a manner in which only I could hear it without much, if any, deital discretion. And Walter, watch this, he admonished me rather adamantly to continue to reference how we are to continue to move in a predestinedly positive progression. Keep moving forward. But I'm being fought. I got you. But keep moving forward. I watch a lot of news, Tucker, and I've been listening to some of these older, I'll call them older saints. I don't know if they're saints or not, but they're older people. They got wisdom. And they said, how did you live to be 95 and 105? They said, I just kept moving. Because when you stop moving, you stop improving. When you stop moving, you start dying. I can't get no help in here. So he says, I need you to know that you need to keep moving with positive progression after all we've been through in order to gain, in order to obtain, in order to ascertain or access, dare I say, possess the places and spaces of great significant value. Keep moving. Might I further insist that the Lord himself is going to allow us to successfully accomplish this despite the ailing actions or the very unnecessary commentary of any of our adversaries. Are you hearing me? In fact, God has put into action. How many know that God always has an action plan? God has put into action a tested and tried transaction. God ain't new to putting deals together for you. I need you to catch it. He's not new to putting together deals for you. God has put into action, Joanne, a tested and tried transaction. Yet in order to seal the deal, we will have to experience some conceptual contractions. Oh, I thought some women who had some babies would holler back at your boy right there. I said, in order, he's going to complete the transaction, but you're going to have to go through the contractions. You want to be pregnant, but you don't want to go through no contraction. You don't want to be pregnant. Can't get no help in this Pentecostal church. You're going to have to go through contraction. Now, but we must be careful. Look at your neighbor and say, be careful. While you're going through the contractions, be careful. Because contraction, what I thought it meant, Toy, what I thought it meant was open up. Contraction don't mean open up. You could probably tell better than I can. It means close down. So at the time I'm supposed to deliver, when things should open up, it's closing down. When it's supposed to come through, it's up. Instead of opening up, it's closing down. You're going through contractions, but be careful and watch your reactions while you're dealing with contraction. Tell your neighbor, watch your reaction, because sometimes people are just trying to get a reaction because they purposely brought a contraction because they're trying to get a reaction. I can't get no help in here. Look at your neighbor and say, watch yourself, watch yourself. Watch your reaction and don't allow any of your disturbances or dissatisfactions to become a distraction. Y'all ain't helping me today. I said you're going to go through contraction, but watch your reaction and don't let your dissatisfaction become a detour or a distraction. Not yet, son. I'm on my run. No doubt. There are some formidable forces. Don't underestimate the enemy. There are some formidable forces that have individually and collectively conspired, yet with the anointed assistance of God, regardless to what has transpired, we will still acquire what we desire. Am I helping anybody? I came home to help you. In fact, this morning, it's a must that I discuss that nothing shall prevent us from gaining or regaining custody. Who am I talking to? Nothing shall prevent us, Nicole, from gaining or regaining custody of our purposed places, spaces, or our property. And when spoken prophetically, we are now positioned to make some awesome acquisitions despite all opposition. Let me hurry here. Now, as usual, y'all still with me? As usual, you know I sought out our God to both utter and unveil just where we as modern day Israel now find ourselves in personified perpendicular parallel. Are you with me? And Lady Hosley, he then turned my attention to what we find mentioned within the content of the context of verses 8 through 13 of the book of Ephesians, chapter number 3. And here it's made quite clear that the Apostle Paul decrees that I am the least of these. Is that what the Bible says? He says, I am but the least of these, yet I've been given the responsibility to preach and to share the mysteries. He says, I'm nobody great, I'm nobody grand, I'm the least toy of these, but I've been called upon to preach and to share, Hardy, since you're inching closer, the mysteries that were hidden from generations previously. Hence, don't be stressed. Tell your neighbor, but don't be stressed. Don't be stressed by the tumultuousness of any test, just as God perpetually purposed. We are with boldness being given access to possess what God promised. Is that in the book? He says, with boldness, watch this, we are being given access to possess what God has promised. You see, here, Paul the apostle speaks in a manner some would consider as being the slightest bit bold. Because he was conclusively convinced that despite all, watch this, oppositional resistance, their predetermined promises were about to unfold. Are y'all hearing me, people of God? I said he talks to the church now, and he talks to the church in a manner, Hosley, that was a bit bold, but he speaks to them bold in light of what was about to unfold. Look at your neighbor and say, be bold in light of knowing what's about to unfold. Okay, y'all didn't say it. I said, be bold in light of what you know is about to unfold. And as I move in sermonic transition, please know that Paul acknowledges the presence of opposition. He knew they were there. He knew. I used to say it more often than I say it now. God's not going to ever let you be blindsided. When you walk with him, it's not going to ever catch you off guard, catch you up by surprise. I can't get you. People may surprise you, but God not going to let. I can't get no help in here. He says, see, as I move in transition, he says, I know, I acknowledge the present, Nyla. I acknowledge the presence of opposition, as well as their ability to make this next acquisition. So I'm acknowledging the opposition, but I also acknowledge that we still going to make the acquisition. Are you hearing me? I acknowledge the fight, but I also acknowledge the favor. In fact, the fight is only because we're favored. If you understand boxing terminology, you don't make no money until you fight the favorite. Fighting you is their come up. You missed it. Did you catch it? Well, I said fighting you because they've been fighting all them nobodies. But now they want to get in the ring with you because you somebody. And they get paid even if you put them on their back. Y'all not helping me. Their come up is to fight you. They're not even relevant. You didn't know Leon Spinks before he fought Muhammad. Oh, I don't have no boxing fans in here. Okay, I'm gonna keep going. So he says, I acknowledge the presence of opposition, but also acknowledge our ability to make acquisition. No doubt he was aware that the opposition, Lady Hosley, was there, but he really didn't care. Oh, did y'all catch it? I know that they're there, but I really don't care. Because I know what God has prepared. In fact, in this instance, without any arrogance, the apostle speaks with the uttermost of confidence, and he says this will not occur without enduring or having to experience some injurious incidents. Watch this. Yet we have the endurance. Tell your neighbor, I can endure. I can endure because I'm sure we have the endurance, because we have a full insurance that won't allow us to faint in the suffrage of our situations, knowing that despite our tribulations, we shall soon make occupation. I can't get no help in here. God will get the glory by the end of the story. Who am I talking to? I said, God will get the glory by the end of the story. Believers, there's no doubt that there will be ever-present opposition, but it will not stop or block us from making the next major acquisition. Did you hear me? There will be opposition, but it will not stop us from making the next acquisition. In fact, do me a favor and just lean over on one of your neighbors and get their attention and dare to prophetically make mention. Say, in the next 3.5 months, who am I talking to? In the next 3.5 months of this 2024 season, God, with the very best of intention, is about to make divine intervention, and we're in position to make the next acquisition. Y'all ain't saying nothing to nobody. Look at your neighbor and say, I'm now in position in the next 3.5 months to make acquisition. I'm now in position to make in the next 3.5 months acquisition. Prepare to acquire the things you desire. I can't get no help in here. I said, look at your neighbor, speaking on with favor, say, prepare to acquire those things that you desire. Believers, did not the psalmist insist, Psalms 37:4, if you ever dare to explore, at least in part, God will give us the what? The desires of our heart. There, Psalms 37:4, if you dare to explore, he says he will give us the desires of our heart. But then I derive from Psalms 37:5 that the psalmist admitted, watch this, only the committed are going to get it. I can't get no help in here. Look at your neighbor and say, only the committed are going to get it. Only the committed are going to get it. God has an open door, but only the committed are going to get it. God is going to make a major outpour, but only the committed are going to get it. God is going to bless and progress, but only the committed are going to get it. God is going to give us access to possess, but only the committed to get it. Your walk must be committed to get it. Your talk must be committed to get it. Your living must be committed to get it. Your giving must be committed to get it. Look at your neighbor, speaking on with favor. Yeah, you got to be committed if you're going to get it. All year long, Lady Hosley, we've been talking about making transitions, but God now has made a commission and given us permission to make these major acquisitions. Who am I talking to? Tell your neighbor, God has given us the permission to make these major acquisitions. In fact, in God, it's no longer too merely enough, Lady Hosley, for us to desire it. But God says now we must acquire it. Are you hearing me? Look at your neighbor, say it's not enough now to desire it. But God has given us permission to now begin to acquire it. Believers, please know that it's literal, spiritual, as well as situational sacrilege for us to, in this next season, live beneath our privilege. Are y'all not saying nothing to me? I said it's literal, it's spiritual, and it's, watch this, situational sacrilege for us to continue to live out the remainder of our lives beneath our privilege. I've come to encourage each and every believer to know that it's time to pull the trigger on something bigger. Who am I talking to? Look down your road, let a neighbor know, say it's time for us to pull the trigger on something bigger. Look to the other side of your road, let that other neighbor know, say, did you hear what I told them? I heard from him that it's time to pull the trigger on something bigger. After all we've been through, God told me to look you in your eye, prophesy and tell you it's time to pull the trigger on things that are bigger. It's time to pull the trigger on blessings that are bigger. It's time to pull the trigger on places that are bigger. It's time to pull the trigger on spaces that are bigger. It's time to pull the trigger on locations that are bigger. It's time to pull the trigger on situations that are bigger. Believers, in this next season, for God's own sovereign reasons, we just will not be denied, because the places God purposed for us that were prophesied are about to be fully occupied. Am I in the right church? I said we will not, we shall not, and Joanne, we cannot be denied, because Lady Hosley, the places and the spaces for us that God has prophesied are about to be occupied. Look at your neighbor right square in the eye and begin to personally prophesy. Tell them, because of what God has purposed us to possess, we will not die until our promise we occupy. Our marriages will not die until we occupy. Our families will not die until we occupy. Our relationships, our courtships, our friendships, our fellowships, they will not die until we occupy. Your career, your atmosphere, it will not die until we occupy. And for those of us who are now properly in position, God says we shall make a major acquisition despite all opposition. Tell your neighbor, now that we're in position, we shall make some major acquisitions despite all opposition. No doubt we've been fought. No doubt, where's my help? We've been battled, but we're in position to make acquisition. No doubt, Tucker, we've been tried, we've been tested and contested, but we will not be denied, because we're in position to take acquisition. Hosley, I'll pay you later, and say it now. We will not die until we occupy. Look at your neighbor and say, I refuse to die until I occupy. In fact, we're in position to make the next acquisition despite opposition. You have access to the car, so I speak acquisition despite your opposition. You have access to the house, I speak acquisition despite opposition. You have access to a spouse, I speak acquisition despite all opposition. You have access to your family, I speak acquisition. Despite opposition, you have access to ministry. I speak acquisition. Despite opposition, you have access to that new career. You have access to the entrepreneurial endeavors. I speak acquisition despite all opposition. Tell your neighbor, your situation. In your situation, I speak acquisition over opposition. Over your location, I speak acquisition over opposition. In your place of habitation, I speak acquisition over all opposition. In your aspirations, in your dreams, in your revelations, I speak acquisition over opposition. In your circumstances, in your finances, I speak acquisition over opposition. In your advances, I speak acquisition over all opposition. In your ambitions, I speak acquisition over opposition. I need a few pew prophets to grab your neighbor by the hand, shake it like you're going to shake it off if you can, and say, whatever you've been believing God for, I speak acquisition over all opposition. Y'all ain't talking to nobody. I said, grab a neighbor, look them in the face, and speak it with grace. Say, I speak acquisition over opposition. After all you've been through, I speak acquisition over opposition. After all of the hurtful issues, I speak acquisition over all opposition. After all the headache, after all the heartache, after all your heartbreak, I speak acquisition over opposition. You will acquire what you desire. Wave your hands a little bit higher and say, I will acquire what I desire. In the next 3.5 months, you shall acquire what you desire. I speak acquisition over opposition. Tell every hater later, I speak acquisition over opposition. Tell every manipulator, I speak acquisition over opposition. Tell every perpetrator, I speak acquisition over opposition. I see you, but I don't care, because the Lord has my place prepared. Look at your neighbor. Say, when you see my haters, tell them I don't care, because God has my purpose. God has my promise. God has my authority already prepared. I speak acquisition over opposition. I may not finish this because I speak acquisition over opposition. I'm sick and tired of God's people being sick and tired. I speak acquisition over opposition. Yeah! Jump on your feet. Don't be discreet. Wave your hands in the air like you just don't care. And speak it over your family. Speak it over your ministry. Speak it over your business. Shout acquisition over opposition. I know it's a fight, but acquisition over opposition. I know it's a battle, but acquisition over opposition. I know you will try, be disqualified, but I speak acquisition over opposition. Grab your neighbor. I said, grab your neighbor, rock them and shake them and rock them, and say, I speak. What you speak on them, it's going to happen for you. Say, I speak acquisition over opposition. When you get there, it's already prepared. I speak acquisition over opposition. When you get there, authority prepared. I speak acquisition over opposition. When you get there, finances prepared. I speak acquisition over opposition. When you get there, the house is prepared. I I speak acquisition over opposition. When you get there, the car is prepared. I speak acquisition over opposition. When you get there, your new honey is going to be there. I speak acquisition over opposition. I'm closing this thing. I can't preach these notes today. I said I'm closing this thing. I can't preach these notes. But I come to tell you that the text gave us insight that in the book of Numbers 33, Moses needed some people who were ready to fight. Because if you can't fight, I can't call you an Israelite. Look at your neighbor. Say, if you can't fight, I can't call you an Israelite. Tell your neighbor, because Israelites know how to fight to make acquisition over the opposition. Look at your neighbor and say, 2024 is still the year you get more. But I need about 50 folk to wave your hands in the air like you just don't care and say, war for yours. Yeah. Say, I'm ready to go to war because I know God said it's yours. And by his grace, he's created a space for what's about to take place. The Bible said, and I'm cutting across the field, Israel, Lady Hosley, hear me, Israel had to go through 42 transitions to get into the promised position. Are y'all hearing me? Sometimes you gotta go through more than you thought you should have had to get to what God promised you. They went through 42 transitions to get in position to make the acquisition. Look at your name and say 42 transitions to get into position to make this major acquisition. Yay! They started in Rames and they journeyed to destiny. Did you hear me? They started in Rames, a burial place, and ended in Canaan, a promised place. Y'all ain't saying nothing. Sometimes you got to understand that the enemy wants to bury what you first carried, but that's all right, because God's gonna get you to the place that is necessary. Look at your neighbor. Say, stop crying. Stop complaining about the stuff you had to bury. Y'all ain't saying nothing, because God is going to move us into the place that is necessary. He said, Moses, tell Israel, once you get over the Jordan and into the Canaan land, move every entity off of your property. Tell your neighbor, I'm moving every enemy off of my property. Anything that resists has to be dismissed. Tell your neighbor, I feel a preach, Hosley. Tell your neighbor, anything that resists is about to be dismissed. People of purpose in this next season, the next 3.5 months, anything that resists, I love you, but you're going to be dismissed. I love you, but see you, don't want to be you. Later, alligator, if you resist what I heard God insist, you will be pink slips. Dismiss. I heard, Lady Hosley, from the kingdom. I heard from the kingdom. Oh, I heard from the kingdom a new referendum as I work with God in conundrum. He said, watch him move them. Tell your neighbor, despite the fight, watch him move them. Despite the battle, watch him move them. Despite the trouble, despite the struggle, watch him move them. Despite the issue, despite the go through, watch him move them. Despite the resistance, despite their obstinance, despite their defiance, I'm not worried, because God said, watch him, watch him, watch him move them. We dispossess all of the formers and possess all of our future. Watch him dispossess all of the previous as we possess all of our promise. Watch him dispossess all of yesterday as we possess our latter day. Watch God dispossess all the history as we possess all our destiny. Watch God dispossess what we used to be as we possess what we're gonna be. Now lean on a neighbor. Y'all know me, I can't do it without saying at least one time. Say, dispossess all of your exes and start to possess all of your nexus. Prepare to make acquisition despite, and God's gonna bless every seed. Prepare to make acquisition despite all opposition, because what's about to take place is God is bringing you into your newly created space. The previous inhabitants will no longer be permanent residents. Y'all ain't saying nothing. Yeah, the previous inhabitants will no longer be permanent residents. A few weeks ago, I let you know that you had to stop fooling with feelings. Did I tell him, Lady Hosley? I said, you got to stop fooling with feelings. And just, lady, the other day, while seated on a plane, the Lord began to explain that also, Tucker, in this next season, we cannot give in until we secure the place he wants us to live in. Tell your neighbor, I'm not fooling with no more feelings, but I also will not give in until I walk in the place I'm supposed to live in. Tell your neighbor, don't you dare give in before you live in your purpose. Don't you dare give in before you live in your promise. Don't you dare give in before you live in your joy. Don't you dare give in before you live in your love. Don't you dare give in until you live in your peace, your release, your increase. Don't you dare give in until you live in prosperity and the fulfillment of your property. Tell your neighbor in 2024. Y'all ain't talking to nobody. Tell them in 2024, more is yours. Tell another neighbor in 2024, more is yours. Grab your neighbor by the hand and tell them, according to God's plan, 2024, more is yours. And I need to tell you, yours is worth fighting for. Grab a neighbor by the hand. Say, what's yours is worth fighting for. Matthew 11 and 12 unveils from the days of John the Baptist, even until now, the kingdom has suffered violence. But tell your neighbor, I will no longer go through in silence, because the violent are taking it back by force. Look at your neighbor like you a Trekkie and say, for the rest of 2024 and more, may the force be with you. The situation is yours. It's worth fighting for. Salvation is yours. It's worth fighting for. The new location, it's yours. It's worth fighting for. The new place, the new space, it's yours. It's yours. It's yours. And it's worth fighting for. Jump on your feet. Go find 5 folk and say, fight for it, fight for it, fight for it. Fight for it, fight for it. Fight for it, it's yours. Fight for it, it's yours. It's your marriage, fight for it. It's your ministry, fight for it. It's your family, fight for it. It's your money, fight for it. That's your honey, fight for it, fight for it, fight for it, fight for it, fight for it. While you saved and passive, fight for it. People who fight for their place can't be punks. Fight for it. Rest on your feet if you're not already standing. Fight for it. Fight for it. Look at your neighbor and say, don't be no punk. Fight for it. I didn't get to all of my notes today, but I wanted to convey what I heard God say. Fight for it. It's yours. And it's worth fighting for. The business, the finance, the circumstance, it's yours. It's worth fighting for. When do we become so passive? When the God of all universe stands with us. And he was bold enough to write in text, watch this, if I'm for you, then who? We've been telling our God how big the problem is, instead of telling the problem how big our God is. You still will make acquisition despite the opposition. Come here, Numbers somewhere around 13. Watch what the Bible says, Lady Hosley. Moses, the leader, said, listen, I'm sending out 12 to spy out the land. But bring me back a report to what you see. 10 of them said, I see giants. It's too big. I don't know. Man, he won't. Well, I've been with Moses up till now. But now this seems too big. Caleb said, wait a minute. The text reads something like this. Caleb stilled the people. Because the bad report, Lady Hosley, had people starting to scatter. I don't think we can do it. I'm packing up. It was better for us to be back in Egypt. Come here, Kamala Harris. We will not go back. Scatter. Caleb said, wait, no, y'all tripping. I saw the giants, I saw the problem, but I also see the promise. And what God is challenging us in this season, Toy, Angela, sis, Beverly, can you see the promise beyond the problem? Come here, Archie. You one of the only ones I might be taller than. Or as tall. I'm gonna stay on my step because that might not be true. Come on, you good. The problem. Stand behind him, Javar. The promise. I ain't talking to you. I see my promise. I ain't studying you because I see my promise. I'm not going to spend no more time talking unnecessarily to you, because I see my promise. Lady Hosley, I know you. Come stand behind me. Lady Hosley, come stand behind me. For this setting, I'm going to let you be my God. Because if God be for me, who can be against me? I see my promise. You got to know who stands behind you is greater than anybody standing in front of you.